lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party.
Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. It's Saturday morning, it's a little bit cloudy. I don't know what the weather's like with you, but it doesn't really matter what the weather's like, does it? Because it is a fantastic time of year. They are in complete meltdown. The meltdowns are still happening last night. We will listen to a little bit of a meltdown before the end of this video. We will listen to a little bit of a meltdown before the end of the video, but there's some Celtic news to get in first thing this morning. I'm going to say good morning to everyone first of all. Celtic Girl was first in the house, Stephen Johnson, Christopher is in the house also, and then Hank was in, and that's about it just now. There are quite a few people online, but just the comment section is just taking a little bit of time to get into full flow. It's cold everywhere this morning, Celtic Girl. It's even cold here. It's cold in France too, says Christopher. Yeah, there is a cold spell hitting over Europe. Good morning from Airdrie, says Jim the Tim. Anyway, into the Celtic news. Brendan Rodgers has been speaking. There is big Brendan Rodgers news just around the corner also, but Brendan Rodgers has been speaking about the fact that there was a few panic merchants within our support after the last couple of games. When you look at 2024 and the number of losses that Celtic have suffered over the full year, there are only 2 defeats this calendar year. 2 defeats in the calendar year. It was back in Tynecastle, if I remember right, and then Borussia Dortmund. Yes, Borussia Dortmund. We'll not talk about that one. But then when you look at the way that we've played this season, especially the start of the season, I thought we got off to a fantastic start. If you'll think back to the pre-season in America. The pre-season in America was a hard slog for the players, dealing with the heat in America, and Brendan Rodgers doing daily interviews for Celtic TV, getting asked almost daily about transfers and people coming and going into the club, and how he was setting the games up. And then he spoke about the Man City game and the Chelsea game, and how he was using these as test matches for the Champions League. He was going to play them as a Champions League game. There was no friendlies whatsoever when it came to it. Brendan Rodgers was entering the second year of his contract, and at this point, as it stands just now, he's got a year and a half left on his contract. And I think that one of the biggest signings that will be made in January, yes, talks have already taken place between Brendan Rodgers and the hierarchy at Celtic Park, and is expected to conclude the deal sometime early in January. This is one of the things that Kieran Tierney asked Brendan Rodgers when they had talks. It's, well, Gaffer, how long are you staying for? And after the last time that Brendan Rodgers left rather quickly, and the fact that Kieran would know that Brendan was coming into the last year and a half of his contract. The last thing that Kieran wants to do is come back to Celtic, and Brendan Rodgers disappears within 6 months or so, due to the fact that he's only got a year left on his contract at the end of this season. But those worries were put to rest. Yes, they were put to bed as Brendan Rodgers confirmed that he will be signing a new contract with Celtic. When he was in Dublin speaking to Dermot Desmond and the hierarchy, that was one of the things that were spoken about. It was spoken about, and it can confirm that it's all looking good. It is all looking good when it comes to Brendan Rodgers extending his contract at Celtic. And will Kieran Tierney be playing on the 2nd of January? Will Kieran Tierney be in the Celtic squad for the game on the 2nd of January? I think it's a game that would ultimately end the season of that mob across the road. We'll listen to a meltdown in a minute, because they're worried about the game. Brendan Rodgers stating the fact that it was his first ever trip to Tannadice on December the 22nd, and a little bit of panic setting in with some of the supporters, and saying that dropping points, like statistically, I've said it before, we always drop 2 points in December. If you look back years, I mean, last year was unbelievable. We dropped more than 2 points, but we always drop 2 points in December. And Brendan went on to say that this time last year we lost a couple of games. We maybe drawn 3. So I think there's not too many complaints, said the Celtic manager. I heard someone say the other day, there's no need to panic. because we drew that game. It was an interesting one. And Brendan Rodgers then went on to say, my idea is the long game. I've got to look after the whole campaign and get us through game after game when it's busy. Until this point, the players have been fantastic, said Brendan Rodgers. When you think, having only lost 2 games in this calendar year, we've been absolutely superb. One of them was away with 10 men against the Champions League finalists. And apart from that, the players' mentality, focus and drive has been absolutely relentless in 2024. We want to finish the year in a really, really good way. The Celtic goals for column margin is highly impressive, with 48 scored in 17 league matches, taking an average of nearly 3 goals per game in the top flight. But it's the goals against column that really catches the eye of people that like to look at the stats, and it's one of the things that the goalkeeper, yes, clean sheet Casper, will he be known as clean sheet Casper come the end of the season? Statistically, the clean sheets that he has put in this season is up there with some of the best keepers that we've ever had at Celtic. The fact that his deal also will be extended, yes, I expect his deal to be extended, and if not January, it will be before the Easter break. Brendan Rodgers will confirm that Kasper Schmeichel has been given that extra year option on his contract. Remember, it's not one that Kasper Schmeichel can say yes or no to. It's one that Celtic will say, yes, we're giving you it. Kasper might turn around and say no, but I don't expect him to do that, and I fully expect him to be Celtic goalkeeper next year. Along with Kieran Tierney playing in the back line. And Brendan says, look, we've got to balance the identity. It's really pleasing aspect for the team. I like the team to be adaptable and can play in all phases of the game. This is the team now can press and be aggressive and be relentless. And there's also times that we have to play on the counter-attack, and we've shown that in European football. There's times that we can defend a bit deeper, and we need to be resolute, also talking about European football. It says the pleasing aspect of 2024 has been the adaptability of this team, something that was set up and put in place during the pre-season. And he always talks about the importance of pre-season, because that's when you get all your tactical training done. When it comes to this time of the season, there's no tactical training that can be done with the players. It's all about making sure that they have a recovery fitness day. And then it's pretty much talking about getting ready fitness-wise for the next game. So it's hard to implement anything. He says that the pre-season is highly important for us at this club. But you also need to look at the defensive tightness and the organisation and the pressing as a team. We've got a really good balance, says Brendan Rodgers, and he is more than happy with the team. It's been a year, the last 12 months, to only lose twice. We can enter 2025 with a real, do you know what? We've got every right to be feeling really good about the way that the club is going just now. And the fact that we are on the verge of doing something really special when it comes to the transfer market, and especially in January. January is always statistically a harder transfer market. Some things can get done a bit later on in the window. But last year, just reading a comment, last year, 17 1 loss to Kelly away, and 18 2-1 loss at Celtic Park to Hearts. And then Celtic are going the great big Dane. Yes, 100% think you would think the league is close. You would the way that you go to the media go on. We'll talk about them in a minute. But yeah, who really cares about the other side? It's all about what Celtic can do. But anyway, there is a lot of transfer chatter going around. I think that the big first one to be done will be the Kieran Tierney one. That will be the first one to be done, according to our spy on the channel. And the Brendan Rodgers one, I fully expect Celtic to roll out the good news map through the month of January, with Brendan Rodgers also signing his extended contract, and that'll make sure that if anybody wants to come in for Brendan Rodgers, it'd have to be big money. Brendan Rodgers is not going anywhere. One of the conversations that Brendan would have had with Kieran Tierney would have been, how long ultimately are you staying at the club, Brendan? Because I don't want to come back And then I feel that there's a new manager comes in that maybe doesn't fancy Kieran Tierney, and then he's pushed out, and it harms his legacy at Celtic. Yeah, that's the way to put it. It harms Kieran Tierney's legacy. Because Kieran Tierney could always be remembered as a Celtic great. He doesn't have to come back. But the fact that he wants to come back to Celtic, and okay, do you think he'll get a part in the derby? I think it was alleged last night that he is going to start in the derby. Kieran Tierney will start in the derby. You've got to remember, the Greg Taylor situation is the exact same, Morning Baz. Is Lanky a real person? Is Lanky a real person? Yes, Lanky's a real person. Of course he's a real person. He goes to games. Oh man, honestly. He'll watch this back this morning and he'll be like, is Lanky a real person? Yes, he's a real person. It's strange. That's cool. Oh my goodness, that was a cracker. Right, anyway, I'm not hanging about long this morning. We need to listen to a little bit of a meltdown. We could talk about speculation of what's going to happen. KT is a big no for me, says William Lang. He's a big no. Well, you're going to be... William, were you one of the people that were unhappy with the fact that Brendan came back in the first place? Just interested because... And how do you feel about Brendan now? It's just an interesting... Get that aspect from it. I mean, we all know that Kieran was going to be sold by Arsenal last summer. Right, Kieran was going to be sold by Arsenal last summer. If it wasn't for the fact that he got a horrendous hamstring injury during the Euros, and I think that there's more chance that he got the hamstring injury because if the game time isn't managed from a player, we've seen it with Celtic players come back far too quick. We've seen it with Celtic players in the past. Look at it when Ange Postecoglou first came to Celtic. How many players were pulling up with hamstring injuries? There was people that first season, there was about 5 or 6 players all got hamstring injuries. I think that Brendan Rodgers knows how to manage a player's game time. And that's what it comes down to Kieran Tierney. And the two of them have an understanding. And I think that Celtic will still, even if we bring in Kieran Tierney, there's still a need for another left back, whether that's we keep Alex Baye at the club, or we go down the road of bringing someone in through the youth system, which I think would be beneficial to the club. But either way, it is all about no harm to Taylor. But I'm just reading that comment now. So I think that Brendan Rodgers will know how to manage Kieran Tierney a lot better than another manager would. And that's all I'm saying. I think that it's not an ideal situation, but I think it will be a short-term contract till the end of the season. I don't know if it's going to be a loan, but he's definitely on his way back. I think that he'll use the next 6 months at Celtic to prove to Celtic that he can stay fit. And ultimately, Jim Davis says, KT loan for the rest of the season, see how he does, Celtic and KT in best interest. I think... the thing is Celtic are going to pay 50 grand of his wages. He's on something like 120 grand a week. Celtic are not going to shell out 50 grand of his wages. It all depends, and there's been a lot of speculation down in London now that Arsenal are at the stage where they're just going to let him go for free at this window. I think it's a possibility. It is a possibility. They will look at it. I mean, the money that Arsenal got is different level compared to Celtic. You know, they're not going to worry about getting 3 or 4 million and 5-6 million in for Kieran Tierney that's only got 6 months of his contract left. Arteta will be of the thought, look, I could free up 100 grand a week. We don't really need the 6 or 7 million for Celtic. It gets a player off the wages. We can go and bring someone else in. Don't know, it's just different level stuff. But I think Brendan Rodgers ultimately will get Kieran Tierney back and manage his game time a lot better than any other manager would. Just my opinion, but when you look at it, I think that's what will happen. Anyway, let's jump into the comment section and see what we're saying. Graham S says KT's too injury prone. It would be a waste of money bringing him back. I don't think so. I understand what you're saying, Graham, and it was my thoughts also. But when you look at the facts that we have, in what's happened over the last couple of months. The picture, and this is where Celtic have controlled the narrative of this whole Kieran Tierney coming back. Never ever have the Celtic Foundation released a picture of Brendan Rodgers and an ex-player at a charity event, right? When they had the charity dinner for the Celtic Foundation at the beginning of December, it was the beginning of December, wasn't it? When they had the charity dinner done in London for the Celtic Foundation, Kieran Tierney and Brendan Rodgers were in deep conversation. Now, they weren't talking about how's your missus, and you know, football players don't talk about how's your missus, how's life, you know, what's this. They were talking football, and that, for me, is when the start of the conversation happened. That's when the conversation happened. Are you interested in coming back? Will you take... This is how the conversation would go with Brendan. Are you interested in coming back? Kieran, all day long. All day long. Right. You need to take a massive drop in wages. No problem, Gaffer, I'll do that. Kieran Tierney's been on over 120 grand a week for, 6 years now? He's not skint. Do you know, the guy doesn't need to come back to Celtic to earn 50, 60 grand a week. And people will say, but he could go somewhere else and earn 50 grand a week. Sometimes, look at what Scott Brown said during his career at Celtic. Scott Brown said many times that players have phoned him up, they've sent him a WhatsApp message 6 months after leaving Celtic, saying that they did the wrong thing. They went chasing the cash. Kieran Tierney doesn't need the cash in this day and age. Kieran Tierney does not need the cash. He will come back to Celtic to prove himself, and Kieran Tierney as well. He will feel that he's got unfinished business at Celtic. You know, it took him a couple of days to get his head round the fact that he had the Arsenal thing there. That Arsenal were coming in for him. He had a couple of days to think about it, and he had a lot of people to ask the question, is that a good thing? Ultimately, it's turned out not the best move for him. He has been a bit injury prone, but when you look at it, if he's going to come back to Celtic, if he's going to take a wage drop to about 40 grand a week or whatever, do you know, it's no big deal as far as he's concerned. Look what happened to Jota when he left. Yes, exactly. Look what happened to Jota. You can go and chase the money. You can chase the money all you want, but ultimately, are you happy? And I think that Kieran Tierney's at that stage of his career where he just wants to get back playing football. He's a Celtic guy through. He's one of us. If you can't remember how Kieran Tierney used to react on the pitch, I've been on the sidelines at Hampden with Kieran Tierney standing right in front of us, absolutely buzzing more than any of us fans, on the terrace. I've been there with Kieran Tierney stood in front of section 111 at Celtic Park, going absolutely doolally, almost jumping over the barriers, you know, grabbing the megaphone. Kieran Tierney's one of us, and I think there's only a certain few players that can come back to a club and be successful, and I think it takes a really good manager to be able to make that happen. We do have a really good manager, and I think that Brendan Rodgers will manage. Look what he's done over the last couple of weeks with our £11 million player. He's taken him off on games, not because he wasn't fit, not because he wasn't hitting his best form, but to take him off and sit him on the bench and watch the game to get a different perspective of Celtic, right? To get him to understand Celtic. That's a manager that knows how to get into the mindset of the players. That's a manager that embraces everything about the football culture at Celtic. And this is about making sure that the player knows what it feels like and means to play for Celtic. Brendan Rodgers is that good a manager that he does that. He will get the best out of Kieran Tierney. If Kieran Tierney only plays 60 minutes, nobody complained. Here's a comparison. Nobody complained when a little guy for Australia could only play 60 minutes most games. Tom Rodgers, his game time was managed by Celtic, and he had a fantastic career at Celtic. If you can bring back Kieran Tierney and do something similar to Kieran Tierney, which was done to Tom Rodgers, manage his game time, People used to say that Tam Rodgers, he can never play 90 minutes. He maybe never played 90 minutes, but with the minutes that he played, wow. Think back to the goal at Hampden. It was absolutely fantastic. And I think that if you can bring him back, and this is the quality of player that Brendan Rodgers wants at the club. He will not be the last signing of the January transfer window, that's for sure. But anyway, let's have a bit of hilarity on Saturday morning. Scales for me. We'll talk about the team later on today and tomorrow morning for tomorrow's game. I think that Brendan Rodgers will get everyone a bit of game time tomorrow. I don't see that there have been too many shock inclusions into the team. I think that it'll be a case of managing the game time for everyone, because the big one for us is obviously the derby on the 2nd, and I think that Brendan Rodgers will make a lot of changes during the game tomorrow to make sure that everyone gets a little bit of game time, to make sure that everyone is in peak condition for the derby. Anyway, let's have a little listen to our glorious meltdown friends this morning. This is a video from last night, and there may be trouble ahead.
How does this situation, and I probably asked this question several times over the last few years, Callum, but how does this situation change? How does it get fixed? What do we need to do? And we'll talk about the manager in a minute, right? But is the club moving in the right direction? New CEO, obviously promoting Niels Coppen into a new role. What can the supporters do? How do they fix it, Callum? I don't know how to ask the question.
Well, it's a $1 million question, isn't it, Martin? I think what I was clinging on,
as Brian says, the £64,000 question. I still don't know what that means, but
who knows, man. I think what I was clinging on to is that a club the size of Rangers, it's always got to get back to the top one day, man. I feel like, given how much bigger we are than the other Scottish teams, I feel like just inevitably we'll get back to the ascendancy again one day. But at the same time, I couldn't blame anyone for being just completely scunnered about it and having no hope.
How long do we accept Callum just being second? Because that's what it looks like it's going to be for a long, long time.
Yeah, it does. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think any of us do accept it, though. That's the thing. Like, the fans don't. It's more the people upstairs that have accepted it. I think, the fans always do keep the standard of this club high. Every season we go in expecting them to at least compete for the league, if not win it, and to beat Celtic and to beat all these other dauber teams and that, man.
All these dauber teams. Wait a minute. This is the same fan base that allowed their club to be sold for £1, that allowed their club in 2012 to enter into liquidation. This is the club that also marched to an empty Hampden, and this is the fan base who put up a banner saying "Make Rangers Great Again," and all it did was make Rangers great again.
It's a really tough situation, mate. I think one positive spin.
I'm sorry. Stop. Did you just say dauber teams?
Mirroring all these teams, man. They've got no budget.
Dauber teams. Every team out there should watch this. All these dauber teams that have 10 points off the Rangers all season. So who really is this top dog in Scottish football? Obviously it's Celtic, but Aberdeen are slowly pushing you, lads.
I thought I misheard. My apologies. That has cheered me right up, by the way. Thank you, Carl. Carry on.
Right, no bother, mate. No bother. I think one positive spin you could put is we do have fresh leadership of the club now. We've got Patrick Stewart coming in. We've got his Fraser Thornton coming in.
How many CEOs has the Sevconians went through over the years? How many leaders of the pack? I am the leader of the pack.
As chairman, fingers crossed they're able to do the business, because boy do we need strong leadership at the top of this club, and ruthless guys who are going to take the necessary decisions to improve this club.
One of the comments this is, write this decade off. Just write this decade off. That'll be like the last decade and the decade before, because we're kind of like, just write the 2020s off, man. Just write them off all together.
But Look, there's not much light at the end of the tunnel. I've got to be honest with you. I'd be lying if I said I know how we get out of this situation, man. But I just hope that a club the size of Rangers is able to come back to where it belongs one day.
What do you mean where? What do you, whoa! What do you mean where it belongs? And the Rangers supporters of a certain age, like the old guy sitting in the background there, sitting going, oh, mate, didn't he say things like that? Because I can remember the 1980s. And Rangers weren't that good in the 1980s. You can't paper over the cracks that were there in the 1980s. Well, we're ranked rotten in the 1980s. And that's factual. It's the history that they bought.
Yeah, just fingers crossed this new CEO comes in, gets rid of a lot of the dead wood. Maybe the manager, finds his form again. Maybe we sack him, get a new one in. It's not impossible. I mean, one thing you could say is things do change quite quick in football, man. Like, I mind obviously the 55 season, Celtic were absolutely, they were rubbish. And then Big Ange comes in and within a few months, they look like a great team. So things can change very
The 55 season where, let's not forget, whilst Celtic put in COVID testing to the Scottish government, Rangers did their COVID testing through a company in Belfast. And they never had any COVID issues the full season. Not one.
quickly. But yeah, I'm afraid that there's no much light at the end of the tunnel, guys. Yeah, I'm kind of as close as you.
Well, look,
Sorry.
if we look ahead, Stuart, and look at where this can get better, this only gets better. Good management from CEOs and directors and stuff. Good decisions made off the park.
Wait a minute here, right? It was only a year and 2 months ago that you were all saying that the CEO and everyone was doing great, and he's got in the best manager ever, and he's just won 3 titles in a row, and it's like, oh, come on, big Phil, man.
Scouting done by the people who are either coming into the club or are already at the club, and a good management structure that can get a team playing well. Right, that's effectively it. Right, it sounds easy, but it's not. And if we look at the players that the current crop of scouts have brought in, right? So here's one.
And yes, we have to remember that the guy that they brought in is just coming from Manchester United. Not a man that was kind of there during the prominent years of Alex Ferguson, but a guy who's overseen Man United in the last decade. Yes, a man that has seen Man United go from the most profitable club in the world, the most valuable club in the world, to the most indebted club in the world. Yes, a club that has that much debt now compared to what it was when under Alex Ferguson's in the 1990s and the early 2000s. Over the last 18 years, this guy's overseen the fact that Man United are now absolutely crap and a mid-table club in the English Premiership. Yes, the great Manchester United are a mid-table club. That's the ambitions that they have for Rangers to be once again that absolutely fantastic team in Scottish football, a mid-table club.
Right, and Graham Caldwell, obviously a St Mirren fan.
Hey!
Phillips in the midfield, absolutely bodied by Rami about 15 minutes into the game last night, and he went missing after that. He didn't want the ball and hid. Recruitment department, Stuart, copping since he's came in, the players that he's brought into the football club. Is it just looking the same way as it did under Mark Allen and the wee midget guy for Falkirk?
That's the first part of your
the midget gem.
Your question there, Martin, was when does it get better? How about 2028 when this man disappears? Because he's not going anywhere before then, right? To move on for that part, I said a couple of weeks ago that considering where we are,
Clement
where we'll be after Easter Road on January the 5th, we'll decide what kind of money we get for January to spend. If come the end of Easter Road and we are, should I say it, 20 plus behind them, 18, 19, 20 points behind Celtic, is he going to get any money to spend? Probably not. Why would you? Just keep it then to the summer. But when the St Mirren boys said there about Manami and getting bullied and he never came back after that.
That's enough of that. Anyway, That is enough of that. I'm 55 in April. I want the 55. I want Celtic's 55th league title in May, says Jim F. This is so good. Says Joseph Davison. Yes, it is so good. The meltdown there in such denial, and the fact that they have admitted that things are not going to get better until the year 2028. Is that not the year that Celtic could do 9 in a row? Just saying. Anyway, thank you to everyone who's watched the video this morning. Thanks to Joseph Davison, Stephen Johnson, Richard Smith, Jason Lee, Celtic Girl, Jed Johnson, Christopher coming in from France, Andrew Colligan, Kenneth, Tone, Richard Coleman, Tamak, Hank, Jason Lee, and many, many more people who have commented on the live section. I'll make sure there is games on today, isn't there? Is there 3 o'clock kickoff games today? I don't even know if there is 3 o'clock kickoff. Where's the fixtures and matches? There is 3 o'clock kickoff games today, isn't there? Yes. So no, it's tomorrow. There's no games today. There's no games today at all. Interesting. Oh well, there's no games today, so you'll not see me at 5:45 today. Celtic part-time. It's going to have to be tomorrow when there is a game tomorrow. Might jump back on later on this afternoon just to talk about the game tomorrow. Celtic obviously host St Johnstone at Celtic Park, another home game. Oh, before we go, I need to say a big, massive thank you. A big, massive thank you to. Oh, it's went up. Oh, wow. 13 hours ago, the total was the end total was 2020. It was 2020, but it is now 2025. Someone has given a late donation to the Just Given page. So let me just get this. Put it on that one, and I'll get this on the screen. Before we go, there we go. The Boxing Day Live event. We managed to raise over £2,025 for the Celtic Foundation. An absolutely fantastic amount of money that has been raised by you, the Celtic fans, for the Celtic Foundation. I'm still. It's an unbelievable amount of money, and a big thank you to everyone who did help. A big shout out to Lorna, who helped massively on Boxing Day, but that is a massive amount of money, and I'm so glad that we've managed to do that over this Christmas period. To raise that kind of money for the Celtic Foundation is absolutely brilliant. A big shout out to everyone who donated to it. It is a wonderful, wonderful amount of money, and thank you for everyone. And it was a fantastic day. Turns out Boxing Day was perfect. It was just the perfect end to the Christmas period. Anyway, make sure, I can't believe that Baz has become my favourite YouTuber, says Jason Lee. Jesus, neither can I, Jason. Celtic Girl says, hey ho Baz, have a great day. Jay Johnson says, later everyone. Graham S says, only the lower league in Scotland today, Baz. Yeah, I've seen that. It's a bit strange, but never mind. You'd think they would split the SPFL over 2 days just to maximise the TV input. But that's TV for you. Rich Smith says well done. Alan Stevenson's well done. And Tam Mack gets the last comment of the day. He says hail, hail. And on that note, there's nothing left to say except have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.
Lit. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the lit. Roll up to the party. Roll up.